On August 6th, eager Rick and Morty fans tuned into Adult Swim to watch what was arguably the most anticipated episode of the season yet, and it was totally worth the hype. Pickle Rick was an instant classic, a non-stop thrill ride delivering ferocious fight scenes, gruesome gore, and an even more intense family therapy session. What's up guys, I'm Justin with Channel Frederator, and today we're giving you 7 facts on Rick and Morty Season 3, Episode 3, faster than you can shout, I'm Pickle Rick! So, what do you say? With that being said, let's get Swifty, started. So right off the bat, it's fairly obvious that this was a why not scenario for the zany mad scientist, but what many people don't know is that this entire concept was conceived from an inside joke. The idea came into fruition during a Season 3 brainstorming session in the writer's room. Apparently, it had been a slow day at the office because 10 whole minutes of complete silence had passed before Dan Harmon impulsively blurted out, by the way, Rick is a pickle. Naturally, everyone shared a laugh, but then they thought, hey, what if Rick was actually a pickle? And the idea started to flow. Episode writer Jessica Gao claims the vision was so clear from the start that Pickle Rick wrote itself in no time. In fact, there were only 2 drafts written before the episode was greenlit for production, making this one of the quickest Rick and Morty episodes created so far. The story snowballed once they decided to take Pickle Rick into the sewer, and from there, the order of events seemed very clear. Then, the question of why instilled the idea of the B story with the family therapy session, and because the writers knew immediately that they wanted a bloody action sequence with Pickle Rick in the sewer, it just made sense to juxtapose that against scenes that were the exact opposite. Dan Harmon relied on his love for classic 80s and 90s action movie tropes, incorporating several timeless cliches that we'll be going over here shortly. Stay tuned for that later. Obviously, the Pickle Rick character design wasn't much of a challenge, but the rats, those were a different story. Initially, they were considered to be way too cute for the action sequence, and people were starting to actually feel bad that Rick was slaughtering them. So, designers went back to the drawing board to amp up the ugly, and the end result was something out of a horror film. They added hunchbacks, warts, missing patches of fur, ghostly eyes, and a ravenous taste for blood, or brine, I should say. The exosuit also went through quite a design phase. In fact, everyone on the creative team got a shot at designing it. The sketches were released online in a behind-the-scenes featurette shortly after the episode aired, and it's interesting to see how the early designs were a bit more elaborate than the finished product. The suit that they chose was more streamlined, but the earlier sketches explored concepts that were more massive and some more humanized. Sort of. There were also a few hybrid cockroach/rat suits, and a few others that found creative ways to incorporate sewer garbage, like old syringes, equipped to the arms. The second runner-up was a suit that utilized a rat butt on the front as armor, but surprisingly enough, the design didn't get picked, although it lasted through a few redesigns. Then on another interesting note, character designer Maximus J. Ponzin took the time to draw Jaguar's daughter Katarina, even though she never appears in the episode. It was purely fun on his part, and the proof is in the design because she looks like a mini version of Jaguar with pigtails and a dress. Somehow, we should have guessed. Hands down, one of the best aspects of the episode was Pickle Rick's exosuit because it was actually based on real science. In 2015, Current Biology published a study entitled Central Complex Control of Movement in the Freely Walking Cockroach, in which researchers prodded a cockroach's brain to determine which neurons control speed and movement. According to this study, every movement that a cockroach makes is encoded within the central complex cells of its brain, and when the neurons are activated, it causes the limbs to move. Essentially, this means that these connections are saved within the neurons, so the brain is sort of pre-programmed to make these movements, which explains why Pickle Rick could manipulate their bodies so easily. Apparently, this research is being applied to the study of robotics, giving engineers a better insight to how to recreate the motor process, but this also provides a great deal of insight on how other animals move, including humans. So, we may not have technology capable of transforming people into pickles and vice versa, but gaining total control of a cockroach's body via their brain is still a pretty cool win in the name of science. This episode featured an outstanding guest star lineup, the most recognizable of which was Danny Trejo from the Machete movies, voicing Jaguar, a new fan favorite character. Another big surprise was actor Peter Serafinowicz's performance as the agency director. If the name doesn't ring a bell, he's most recently known for his performance as the Tick in the new Amazon series. However, the real story here is how Susan Sarandon came to voice the role of Dr. Wong. Surely, most fans probably assumed this was simply a joke on the writer's part, but the truth is, it was merely a happy accident. Writer Jessica Gao was determined to include an Asian character on the show because until now, there really hasn't been one. They were mid-process for casting the role and Jessica had her heart set on an Asian comedian, but out of nowhere, Dan received a notice that Susan wanted to be on the show. And as Jessica put it, you can't say no to Susan Sarandon. So she was immediately cast as Dr. Wong, but the question still remains, why the heck does an Academy Award-winning actress like Susan Sarandon want to be on Rick and Morty? Dan Harmon speculates that her kid must be a fan, but we here at Channel Frederator say that the show is just that awesome. Every episode of Rick and Morty is loaded with fun Easter eggs for fans that know where to look, and Pickle Rick is no exception. So we jotted down as many as we could for your viewing pleasure. Starting with the very first scene while Morty is getting ready in the bathroom, there's a picture of his dog Snuffles from Season 1 Episode 2, Lawnmower Dog. This is one of the two nods to the original universe where the series took place, now referred to as the Cronenberg universe. The second nod is when Rick tells Jaguar that he abandoned Beth in his universe. There's another more subtle throwback to the first season when Mr. Goldenfold mentions his poop eating disorder. Immediately, the alternate universe where everyone eats poop comes to mind from the Rick Steve Minutes episode of Season 1. Also in this scene is Dr. Wong's second study, coprophagia, listed on her door. Coprophagia means consumption of feces. I suppose the inspirational hot dog photo on the wall makes a lot more sense now. When Rick takes a glass bottle out of the trash and puts it in the recycling, it's considered an insult to the Russian bad guys, referencing California's progressively green way of thinking. Also, during the standoff theme with Rick and Jaguar in the office, there were many humanizing aspects such as family photos and personal memos hidden in the background to depict the bad guys in a more positive light. Then there was even an Easter egg for all of you gamers out there. The infamous StarCraft scream, aka the Howie scream, soundbite plays when we see a bad guy get laser blasted in the hallway at the embassy. It's no secret that Pickle Rick was composed almost entirely out of action movie cliches, but there were a few unexpected references that might have slipped under your radar. For instance, the opening scene where Rick is calling Morty's name is a shout out to the High Fructose Adventures of Annoying Orange, which is one of the many shows that Jessica Gao has written for before Rick and Morty. Also during the first act, Rick mentions cats being afraid of cucumbers, a very popular internet trend, and his comparison of dying on the toilet is a reference to Elvis's death. That's right, you know, the king was actually found on his throne, for those of you who didn't know. A more subtle reference is Rick's journey through the sewer. Believe it or not, this is an odd spin on Fievel Goes West, when Fievel's family journeys through the sewers. The action movies start coming into play with a loose send-up to Iron Man, in which Rick's new exosuit is assembled by way of machine, similar to Tony Stark's method. The entire embassy storyline was mostly derived from Die Hard, with a few elements that seem reminiscent of The Bourne Identity, diluted with several other action hero franchises. Continuing this trend is the cliché Jaguar character, whose story is similar to that of Commando, the irony here being that Die Hard was originally pitched as Commando 2 before Arnold Schwarzenegger passed on the part. Also, you may have noticed that during the standoff with Jaguar and Rick in the office, that there's a fun Rambo reference when Jaguar uses gunpowder to cauterize his wounds, much like the titular hero in the third film. Jaguar also incorporates the infamous Van Damme splits during this action sequence, a signature move that Van Damme performed in nearly every single one of his films. Then, last but not least, the most recent film to be parodied here is John Wick. It's relatively subtle, but while the Russians called John Wick Baba Yaga, aka the Boogeyman, they refer to Rick as Solnia, which translates to the Pickle Man. Honestly, I'm not sure which one is more intimidating. All it took was one promo trailer and the bizarre pickle portrayal of Rick Sanchez was already a fan favorite. That's right, even before the episode aired, people were completely taken with the idea. We're talking fan art, memes, ringtones, Tumblr blogs, Twitter pages, t-shirts, and a sudden demand for an official Pickle Rick emoji. Not to mention the power of the catchphrase, "I'm Pickle Rick!" The online response was so overwhelming that when it came time for the episode to actually premiere, the show tweeted out the wait is over to all the fans biting their nails in anticipation over this episode, and definitely it did not disappoint. From helplessly falling into the sewer limbless and alone, to building a full exosuit made from rat parts, and then murdering a bunch of Russian agents, Pickle Rick is likely to have any fan fired up over the 80s action scenes, international intrigue, and campy B-movie fun. So really, hats off to the writers on this one. As always, ways, the Rick and Morty crew gave us exactly what we wanted: bloody action and absurdity in the form of a humanoid pickle. Well, there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching 7 facts on Rick and Morty Season 3, Episode 3, Pickle Rick. What was your favorite moment in the episode? Do you have any Pickle Rick merch? Are you planning on picking up that official Funko Pop figure like I am? Let us know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to click the bell icon to become part of our awesome notification squad, as we have new videos dropping every single day, so make sure to subscribe to channel Frederator, your cartoon central on the internet, and never forget, Frederator loves you.